Hi guys, welcome to the No Bullshit Gymcast podcast. My special guest today is Matt Adams. Matt, welcome. I've known this guy for so many years, come across each other from way back in the day of judging and Matt doing photography for WABA, then doing judging, and then we went on and we both were very big successful people in WABA qualifications. We owned the franchise brands across multiple counties in the UK. So, Matt, welcome.
Okay.
Give us a little intro into you, and we'll go from there, mate.
A little intro that might be difficult to keep it little. So I'd like to think that I'm one of the UK's leading female physique and mindset coaches. Currently, my first female client to stage was actually 12 years ago now. So I've been prepping females and males, but my first female, like I said, was 12 years ago. So I've been doing that for a long time. Now, my my background, I started over 25 years ago in the fitness industry. You know, um, Obviously with a interest in bodybuilding myself, I started competing. And yeah, over that 25 years, I've done close to 50 shows myself, competed in close to 50 shows now, all around the world. Um, Universe champion, world champion, European champion. Um, you already highlighted the fact that as part of WABA, we had our own PT business and trainer PT business. What else? I've been international judged all around the world at highest levels as well. I've even had my own federation, as you know. You've been there. One of the most successful British bodybuilding shows, the Battle of Bedford, where we year on year used to get over 100 competitors. And then the federation, the GPO, we built that up from Battle of Bedford, one show, then to 5 shows in the UK, and then to 5 European countries. So that expanded, and so pretty much there's a little intro into me. Within the bodybuilding and fitness space, I've done a lot.
So, Matt, what made you really start to get into bodybuilding? If we went back, say, 30 years ago, like you're like 21 plus something. We'll just keep it at the 21. But yeah, take us back. What was it that originally got you into bodybuilding?
Okay, so this is an interesting one. Well, just before I guess got into bodybuilding, just prior to that, as a teenager growing up, the likes of Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Lee, Jean-Claude Van Damme, they were all hitting the Hollywood screens. And so as a teenager growing up, you're seeing these, I think for the first time, these incredible physiques, and you start to think, oh, you start to look at those, and I guess that was what got me interested in looking that way. I'd done a bit of martial arts following Bruce Lee, and I did actually my first ever time in the gym was when I was about 15, and I did start going a little bit at that point, but I didn't keep it up. I then went to university, where I mainly focused on football. Played for the team, and then it was when I finished university that the football turned into more like five-a-side instead of competition football, and I just started going to the gym. I wanted to just keep a physique. So at this point, I wasn't really focused on bodybuilding in any kind of serious way. And I think, the truth be told, and not many people know this unless you're close to me, is, throughout university and post university, That was back in the 90s. The rave scene was huge, and we'd go out partying every single weekend, and that was a big part of my life at that point. And so I'd go to the gym on a Monday, Wednesday, and a Friday, and then sometimes on a Monday, depending on how rough I felt from the weekend. But then on a Friday, straight after the gym, we'd go to the pub, and then we'd start going out and partying, and that was my life, I think. Then obviously, well, not obviously, but what happened was I met someone, my first wife, um, and we had a child, my eldest child, who's now 20, she's 27 this year. And I think, I guess there was a level of maturity then required having a child. Um, and so what happened was I wanted to get out of that partying cycle. So I started to commit more to the bodybuilding. And as I guess, started to see results in the bodybuilding, I was like, well, I can't do the both. I can't drink beer and have a party life with no sleep, as well as try to grow muscle. And it was this balance, well, not balance, but it was this scale of conflict, I guess. And then in the end, it was like, no, I need to knock this on the head. And so that's what drove me into bodybuilding.
So obviously this is a biggie, and I feel this has changed a lot. So we've obviously been in the industry for 20 plus years, both of us. But do you feel bodybuilding in the last decade has ultimately changed?
This is definitely a big one. It's definitely changed without a doubt. But
Do you feel
so
it's
does
better or the
so
worse of that?
I mean, most things change. Most things evolve. Um, so there's an element of, well, yeah, I would expect it to. Um, However, um, you know, in the last, I mean, the whole world has changed in the last 10 years. Technology, there's so many things. So bodybuilding, I guess, has changed in many positive ways. But also there are, I guess, some drawbacks with it becoming popular with the modern age of social media, um, with more and more people doing it. I guess so. Yeah, I mean, how has it changed? Let's look at some of the good things. In the last 10 years, I'd say that our knowledge, the science, the human studies around um, you know, supplementation, PEDs, that's improved. I think that's a positive in the sense of
100%, that side of the industry, I feel has changed for the better. I certainly feel that there is other sides to the industry that you would think would bring a lot of positivity have brought probably more negativity than they have positivity,
oh
i.e., online socially. Now, we back in the day, we used to probably go into WH Smith's, which is like for the guys around the world. It's like a news agents or magazine store, and we would probably go and buy Flex or whatever else. But now it's all online. It's all on Instagram. There's no how do I put it? There's no honesty, I feel. There's very little honesty. It's a case of I'll go and get that shot regardless if I have to go back home and play around on Photoshop for 3 hours.
yeah, I mean, there's a very definite fakeness. It's not just in this sport though. It's in general. It's a society thing. It's not just specific to our sport, but like you said, back in the day, go going back further than 10 years, we didn't even have mobile phones. You didn't even know who was going to be in the gym. You turn up, you go in the gym to work out. If you go into it, if you're going to compete, you had no idea who was going to be there. It was a competition, and that was, I guess, part of the excitement back then, and it was underground. Um, now it is commercial, and the apps where you can change how you look, and it's people are trying to get the best angles and stuff like this. There's a definite fakeness, which does ruin and distort and I think confuse many people, because we see things, and people nowadays as well, they speak with authority, very confident, speak with authority, they look good, and people generally will believe them because they are talking with authority.
People buy into authority through visual things rather than actual. Okay, it's a bit like how many people, hands on heart, honestly, out there, go and look at your mobile phone contract and read it all the way through.
I haven't.
I haven't. You know what I mean? So you don't know. It could be, you're stuck with that phone for 2 years. Who knows, right? Unless you pay X amount to upgrade it, or it might say the next after 12 months the payments will go up from 15%, whatever it could be. But you haven't read it, and it's people exactly the same. They see someone famous online, an influencer, looking absolutely shredded, and they think, wow, that's all year round. No, it's not. How many people do you know, Matt, all year round in 20 plus years have you known sitting there literally all year round, and I'm in quote, all year round, who are probably, say, 12 weeks out from a show?
I mean, to be fair, I would say generally there aren't many. However, in modern society, there are a few, depending on which category we're talking about here, because there are female bikini, like Ashley. She stays competition ready all year round. She's very rarely further than 6 weeks out. Now, there are examples.
Yeah, but it's few and far between, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we did, this is the few and far between, and we did this as the general population, this you wouldn't even, you could personally, you could probably only do it on your hand, right? Count how many you know. Here, you could probably do 200 fingers, and that's not even touching the surface.
Yeah, I mean, if you use me as an example, because that's I'm here right now, and I'm lean. I'm getting on stage on Saturday, but once I finish competing, once I go into an off season, and it's not extreme. I'm trying to stay within I'm not just trying to bulk and put weight on. It's a structured off season, but sometimes it can look like I don't even train because that little weight in the face, and the t-shirt. The people will go, God, has he ever been on stage before? So that's where you're coming from.
Yeah,
I think the point here isn't necessarily that. I think the point here is just because someone looks good, just because someone is an IFBB pro, that doesn't make them an educator and an influencer, in a lot of the things that they talk about. What they'll do is talk about things that they're not an expert in, and that's the problem that we've got. Most, and let's keep it to bodybuilding or any sport really, but most athletes who are the best in the world, it's through genetics and that work rate as well. But they often talk about science, and things that they know nothing about. They'll do nutrition plans or things like this when they're not skilled in that space. And I think that's the bigger problem, really. Just because they're an amazing athlete with an incredible physique doesn't make them the best person to educate people on science.
True. And this is where I feel that the decades have changed, right? Where, like you said a minute ago, back in the day, bodybuilding was underground, right? I did a podcast recently with Trev. Now, we talked about bodybuilding. His favorite era was like late 90s, early 2000s, like 2001 max, and still had Kevin Larone, Flex Wheeler, the start of Ronnie, those days, Lee Priest.
Yep.
Everyone was different. No one was near the same. No one's a mass monster or trying to be this stupidly big mass monster. And as Lee Priest said the other day in his on his Instagram, they're handing out pro cards willy-nilly nowadays, and it's true. And this is my big belief. Since COVID, and not many people like talking about COVID, but since COVID, I think in the first year of COVID, the IFBB in the UK put out over 18 pro cards. 18. And it just dilutes the standards. It's just basically bums on seats. We want to make as much money. Where back in the day, the sport was underground. It was a lot harder, wasn't so commercialized. And that's the difference. But then that commercialization, yes, everything has to grow and become something different. But I think the influence is far greater than what the sport is now. And it's all about the influence.
Yeah, I mean, again, I've got a lot of mixed views around things. So a lot of people will go, they'll make comparisons about the old days and the new days, and they'll poo-poo them, and times have to move on. And so giving out 18 pro cards, I think I can look at that and go, well, so what? Does it dilute the sport? And I can throw kind of questions at it, and I think, right, well, I'll look and I'll think, okay, so this person there got a pro card, and you'll think, well, was he good enough? And he looked pretty average. So you can question him. Why did he get a pro card? And then you can start to poo-poo all the new age of giving out pro cards. But that same person then had the potential to be good, and you've a couple of years later, he's done all the work, and you're like, he actually deserved a pro card. And this is so you can see it and think, well, hang on, I can see two sides to it, and there is an evolving business. Bodybuilding would die, like literally die, if we don't inject some kind of, I don't know. It needs money. It needs people to view it. It needs excitement. It needs people. So from a business perspective, you've got to understand that, do these people have potential to be pros? And that's where I look at it. I have a more positive view than looking at the back and at the past and going, because it's definitely changed. It's not the same anymore, and so it's difficult to compare. I would love to go back to that era and be back in that era, because that was when it was amazing. But we're not in that era anymore, and you've got to look at how do we do things to keep it evolving in the future, and that's my view on it.
So this is a great way of moving on to this next question. So the older you've got, okay, I've known you for like what? It's got to be at least 10 years.
Yeah.
Do you feel the older you've got, the more your mindset has improved to help you utilize your goals a lot more as you've got older?
Ooh, okay. So let me clarify that age is not the factor here. So me getting older is not the factor.
I told you you're 21, mate. So
I think it's more about the timing. If I knew what I knew now when I was younger, or had the opportunity to know what I knew now, it's not age dependent. I don't think. Obviously, there's a level of maturity and experience required that when you start to understand mindset, then it's clearer. You can apply it more. You have more life experience behind it. So yes, but I mean, I guess the point is, I'm 54 next month, Jesus, and I'm still learning. By being 54 doesn't make me a guru of mindset, and that's essentially, the point here.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that's what I'm saying is obviously you hit the nail on the head. It's experience and life experience, right? To be able to manage it and use it and utilize it a lot better than you were back in the early
Yeah,
days.
I mean, now, I mean, to answer that question, I guess now that I'm at this point in my life, I've experienced all the things that I've had, I've educated myself around mindset, then I am in a much better place to utilize mindset um, for my own goals.
So with your own goals, what are these goals this moment in time? And obviously using your mindset now that you've, homed in on it a lot more, are you feeling that you are achieving a lot more because of the maturity of being able to use your mindset in other ways rather than previously?
Absolutely, 100% without a doubt. Yes. Um, I think the big, a lot of people are through their own life experiences, through parenting, through schooling, they naturally build up a strong mindset without actually knowing it. And this is why I said age isn't a factor here. And some people don't even realize that they're using their mind, the power of the mind, and are very good at it. Other people are weakened and struggle through their life experiences, and they have a weaker mindset, and a lot of these people suffer. Um, so one thing I've learned through mindset is that I guess no matter what the circumstances are, the mind can make you achieve greater things. Um, you know, the mind is one of the most powerful things that we've got. It's probably the most powerful. If we utilize our mind and our mindset, you know, we can achieve greater things, and we can be happy instead of sad. We can control emotions. We can help others. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's very important.
So obviously you at this moment in time you're 5 days out from your show.
Yeah.
How are you? I've seen you compete, so and I know, and I've seen how you've been in the past. How do you feel that now with your mindset where it's at? How's that affected your prep now? Because I've prepped a lot of people. You've prepped a lot of people. I had someone at the Arnold's this year. At the end of the day, you seem very, for you, very, very switched on, very, very more targeted than I've ever probably seen you before.
Okay. And what was the question? Was it
So how is this? How's this mindset changed for you from previously, where you were a bit, I don't know, edgy, a little bit more. How do I put it? In the past, I wouldn't say struggling as such, but you could say struggling, but a lot of things would come into play, like interferences from other people, etc., etc. Where now I have probably in these last few, well, this whole year that I've noticed that you've done a couple of shows, probably from the back end of last year to now, your mindset, how it's come across, has been literally laser focused, and you seem more calm, more relaxed, more, solidly grounded, as I would say, on every aspect of it. Obviously, yeah, we don't get to see all the behind of the scenes of Matt Adams' personal life, etc., etc. But from a perspective of what I've seen, you seem a totally different person from previously.
Yeah, I mean, so I am definitely. And I guess so. This will be so. I've been so in this span or this phase of prepping. I'm on week 30 of prep. I started in December. Um, so Saturday will be my fourth show. And I guess the difference about going into this last show, there's definitely a mindset element, but I think where I learned how important the mindset was probably in the first phase of this prep, whereby I guess even though you know, my evolution as a coach over the years is through learning, through, through studying, through mentoring with some of the best in the world, through understanding the science around this. And, you know, and this is one of the things that's changed around bodybuilding is what the knowledge that we know. And so through my experience as a coach, I'd utilize that knowledge, and it's not always about just all in 100%, just smash it. And I guess at the start of this prep, I decided to give that method a go, ignore what I knew, and literally with the power of the mind see what was possible. And that process was pretty gruesome, to be fair. Literally all in 110%.
You
To
were
the
live,
point.
you were live, breathing, eating it, weren't you? You were literally like nothing else on this planet existed.
Exactly. And at that point, I was aiming for a pro card, and I thought that was, is this what's needed? Is this what's needed? Um, and so I gave it a chance. But and I guess the mindset along with that carried me through, I guess, what would have broken most people. It would have broken most people early on.
As we know, we're not stupid. 60% of people who come to us over the years go, I want to get on stage. 60% of those aren't even getting to the stage. You know that. I know that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that is, this is where, from my personal opinion, and I say this to my clients, unless you are going to put in, like, not 100% like what you're saying, like literally eat, breathe, other parts of life are, I feel from my experience and how I coach, is very, very important to have a balance across the top. But bodybuilding's here, and everything is here. There is that little gap. You still have to have that gap. But guys, a lot of guys will just buckle. 60% of them, I reckon, will buckle, never get to stage.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's so varied depending on the client and the goals. But if you're pursuing a pro card, if you're wanting to win, if you're prepared to do what it takes, then that's a huge, huge commitment, that will buckle most people, because it's so tough, it's so extreme. It's, and I pushed it beyond. I pushed it another 20% and another 25% more, and towards the end, at my last show, I was disappointed in the result, not in the result, but in how I looked.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when obviously I started to think about things, and I thought, I started to feel unwell. There were visible signs that I wasn't well, and I guess I look back at that phase and I think, you know what? If I didn't have the mindset that I did have, there's no way I would have been able to get that far, achieve what I did. But the beauty is stepping out of that and, going back to what I know, reducing volume, putting a more highly nutrient dense food in, smart way of training. I feel like a new person. But that, I still need the mindset
Yeah, I
to
was about to ask you, has this period, that first period of this year, when you've like done your first 3 shows and coming off the back end of that third show, has that set you back, or do you feel taking that step out of it and with your mindset now, you are able to go, you know what, I can push through on my own, do it the way I know, and obviously you've done your changes. And to be honest, I saw your photos from your last show, and I've seen your check-in photos that you've put up, and there's a significant difference, and the quality is quite significant. It's quite actually scary. So, and I don't think, how many weeks apart is that? 3, 2, 3?
3 weeks, yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So it's quite scary that you've almost like, I'd like to say you've almost reversed yourself out of shit, and you brought yourself into a really cool steady state level where you're almost like, I wouldn't say you're at peak 3 weeks out, but you were like, yeah, okay. Most people would be like, shit, I'm looking good for 3 weeks out. I've got 3 weeks. I can probably, at worst case, I could cruise a week here and keep it pretty level and then cut in on the last 2.
Yeah, I mean, there was a huge dilemma there in the sense of, when you've pushed so hard, you're down to hardly any food. You're doing so much cardio. You know, most people would come up, hit a brick wall.
Oh,
And like you said, in 3 weeks, by actually reversing that process, by pushing food in, by reducing volume, it's turned it around completely. And a lot of the health issues that I was experiencing have disappeared, they've gone. But the key here is what the question is, the initial question is around the mindset, I think. That was a valuable lesson for me. And what it taught is how strong I can be, and what I can achieve in any situation. And that, if you can, that just builds you up in the sense of the self awareness. There's so many good things to doing something like this. I wouldn't recommend people do that, to be fair, but people who have gone through hard times, even if you talk about people like David Goggins and people who push themselves through ultra marathons and things, it's a similar type thing. That's not based on health, it's based on mindset.
oh yeah.
And I would like to say that I'm mentally, a much stronger person from that. So I've taken value from it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, taking the value from that. Now, you and I have been again in this industry a long time. Do you feel, off the back end of that experience, off the back end of other experiences in the past, do you feel over the years the industry has, the trust in the industry is starting to fade, and the quality of coaching is dropping?
I'd say it's flooded. And this is the problem, because the quality is probably better than it's ever been somewhere. There are, and I know individuals who are absolutely, the quality is there, but it's absolutely saturated and flooded with people who have no knowledge whatsoever. It goes back to that thing that we said before, that all you've got to do is have a six pack and look good, or a nice pair of boobs and a booty, and people are going to listen to you because you'll speak with authority, and that's what dilutes the industry. Again, the people with titles, talking about knowledge that they don't know, that dilutes the industry. And then every Tom, Dick, and Harry now is a coach.
Too right they are, mate. It's
Yeah.
forget the back in the day nowadays, right? When it was like, oh yeah, I got my cereal box qualification in 6 weeks. Oh yeah, I can go in the gym. Yeah, start tearing you up in a gym. No, it's not like, it's even worse now. It's like mums. It's like people who have gone and done. I'll bring up a little example. There's a woman who follows me on my Instagram. I don't name names on here, but she's on there, has no qualifications whatsoever. I'm a Monjaro expert now. You should be right. Okay, love. Do you really want to go and kill someone? Potentially. It's crazy. It's
Yeah.
utterly crazy.
Oh, it is. And the trust element that you talk about. So, in my experience, I have a lot of people that come to me off the back of going to other coaches. So they'll go to the flashy lights, and the people that have got all the give it the big in, and they'll go to them because that's where you're attracted to. You're attracted to those social media. Attract them. And they're the ones with the flashy videos. They've got all the cash and the dough and the big smiles and the confidence. So that attracts people. But those people who go through that experience, they often come out worse or feel undervalued.
Number.
Yeah, they don't get the results that they want. It can be damaging health wise. It can damage the whole mindset and self belief, and they can walk away feeling really down. And I often do take clients on who've been to one, two, even three coaches in the past, and they'll say, "Oh my God, you know, this is so different. I never got this." And even things like, well, my diet used to be given me on WhatsApp. It used to tell me to eat 200 grams of chicken, and I'd be like, okay, well, and when you know what you're talking about, how did that person work out the 200 grams of chicken? And they've just guessed it in the head and went, eat 200 grams of chicken with some broccoli and some rice. It's not calculated. And that is their top level coaches, but perceived top level
Oh yeah,
coaches.
mate. You don't need to get me. I could be here all day for 5 days going on about stuff like this. It's just I just find it mind-boggling, right? That people will call other people out for certain things, but then you see them doing stuff, and you just like I sit there just patiently, waiting. I was watching someone the other day, it's training, and I'm just like, yeah, no wonder you've got no outside quad sweep. You walk like a goddamn duck. It's like it's sort of
Yeah,
medium, and you literally do all your exercises exactly like that. And I'm like,
I mean, social media, what because people want to get more likes and more follows, then they'll come up with these um, attractive ways of training that look good on a reel. And they'll see. Have you seen the one where like people are standing on top of dumbbells and they're doing
oh, yeah.
and people think, well, oh, that must be good. And so they follow those, but there's no biomechanics, there's no science behind them, and it's all for show. And that's the problem one of the problems in the modern age, is because it looks good, and because that person's got a big booty, then obviously we're going to follow her because she's got big glutes. But actually, the science behind it is that could be there could be one exercise in there which is good, but she's just trying to show you something different. But
Exactly.
different isn't necessarily the best. Yeah.
We
So
know this, mate. We've done the old school way. We came from a very old school way of training. Obviously we both taught WABA back in the day. I can remember Alan would absolutely crucify the living hell out of most people these days. The guy would probably have a walking, talking heart attack before he'd even got in a gym.
yeah,
Just on
but
mechanics.
but but
Literally.
also on the flip side to that, there has been some major developments in biomechanics, and some of the old school stuff now is been proven not to be the most efficient, and
Exactly.
so there is a evolution in that, and some of the equipment that's now available is way better than
Oh yeah,
before.
100%,
So
100%, 100%. I would say machine-based exercises are coming up to levels of free weights at more and more and more each year of development.
yeah,
I would say personally, I would get more activation, say for instance, on a row machine than doing barbell row.
but definitely,
You
definitely,
know what I mean? So it's horses for courses. I wouldn't say necessarily all techniques are bad, but if you look at the biomechanics of how the human body works generally, right? You're not going to start getting, your lateralis like working with your feet turned out 5 foot wide, this wide, and start doing squats. It
yeah,
isn't going to happen.
yeah.
You know that. I know that. So here's a question for you, mate. And obviously, this is I've done quite a few podcasts with this, which will be coming out very soon. Is more and more women pushing PEDs, mate. Now, like you said earlier, you predominantly do a lot of female prep work, right? What are some of your protocols? Do you use PEDs with your clients? Do you not? Do you try to minimize it? What's your beliefs with regards to it?
Okay, so this is, I guess,
A very open question.
it is. So first of all, let me clarify that there's definitely an issue out there at the minute. And this, again, there's a whole theme here. There's people who don't know what they're doing, telling people what things to take, and that's the big issue. Um, that hasn't changed because 20 years ago,
Exactly
Fred in the gym would say, "Oh, you should be taking this and that," and you just follow him and take him without any science knowledge. Let me also clarify as well that there's a big stigma around pets, and the more that you know, the more you understand, and the more use they could have or couldn't have. And for instance, I'll give you a really good example that might add a little bit of clarity. I had a female, 67 years old, okay, right, um, who wanted to feel better. Now, you know, we she didn't necessarily want to get on stage at that point, but she wanted to lose weight, tone up, and we were traveling for some time, and she had various issues like being tired and um, lots of health issues. And I said to her, you've been to doctors? They went, yeah, they've done all kinds of tests, can't find anything. I said, what you need to do is go and have a full blood test, check your bloods. She didn't want to pay for it, and she wanted to do it through the NHS service. And I said, okay, well, ask them to do some testosterone and hormone panels.
Mhm.
And essentially, what it came back was her testosterone was a zero, absolutely zero. Um,
Was
and
she TRT previously?
no, but she's 67. So, and there's a little bit of a story to this. Um, so the doc, she told me this. I said, well, go back to the doctor and say, you want something done about it. And the doctor's reply was, well, that's what you expect from someone your age. And she got upset about it. And I said, well, why would you expect that? You don't expect that. So go back and tell them, I don't want to feel like this and I want some form of treatment. Anyway, so the doctor sent her to a hormone specialist. And the hormone specialist looked at her file and said, you should have come to me 10, 15 years ago, because we would have looked at your hormone panel and we would have supplemented with testosterone and various other chemicals. So the moral of the story is we have these natural hormones that can go out of sync, and they are necessary to balance life. Now, if we're using that woman as an example, once she started taking the testosterone exogenously, she felt a million times better. And the hormone specialist said, you're probably going to live an extra 10 years. So a lot of people will go steroids, that's bad. But there's a flip side. That they are bad if misused, misunderstood, if they're given, in excess. So, and there's all types of paths. There's anabolic steroids. There's fat metabolizers. We even use insulin as a performance enhancement drug. It depends on what you label as a ped. So, in answer to the question, do I use them with clients? Well, I do not force any client to take a supplement. What I do is, based on the client's requirements, what they want to achieve, I will then discuss with them. I'll say, well, if that's what you want to achieve, based on where you are, there are potential things that might assist you in that goal. Now, but you need to be wary of the consequences of those, or I'll, you know, I've got documentation around them and say, you need to go and read these yourself and understand
mm,
if that's exactly what you want to do,
mm.
then you need to understand the consequences of it. I would never just say, take this, take that, do this, do that.
I had a client, and she'll know who it is, and she was prepped by an Olympian prior to me for 2 years. So she competed in Sweden, got diddled in Sweden, and do you know what her coach turned around and did? Sent her a link to testosterone instead of saying anything. Just a link. There, take this. Order that now. That was it.
That's great.
Like, you. When was that? I said to her when she came to me and we discussed this. I said, when was the last time you had your bloods done? Probably a year and a half ago. Right. So you've been doing stuff all this time, on and off, and you've not had any bloods. No. Right. Well, we're not doing anything until you've had your bloods done. They were horrendous. They were all over the place, well out of whack. 8 weeks later, had another one. Oh yeah, vast improvements. But people don't, you have to understand what the consequences are you're going to be doing to yourself. Yes, potentially you could be wrecking your life on a bad day, right? On a good day, yes, you could like improve your life, your quality of life, but there is still consequences at the end of the day. There is still things that you're going to do by putting injectables into your body or orally, causing damage to your body, which you have to be aware of. But
Yep.
people don't like doing this. It's like, oh, well, no, there's a magic pill, there's a magic jab, there's a magic pen, all the above. And I think it's just got out of line and a bit out crazy,
Oh, I
especially.
mean, definitely I mean, the GLP-1, drugs that are out there now. That now is an example of where you're seeing it on Facebook, people advertising that they're selling it because it's cheaper than the NHS. So there's now becoming an abuse of GLP-1. Now, understanding how that can be utilized, it's a very valuable tool.
It is.
Uh, but just selling to someone and go, there you go, that's an abuse. And that's purely money making. That's someone trying to make money and giving someone a potential health issue that could have long-term damage. So that's what you're talking about specifically. I mean, there's lots of what's the word? It's almost become anyone. It's almost normalized because
It has become normalized, right? So this is my big belief, PDs, right? I'm sure, I don't know if you've done any. I know I have. I'm very open about it. That this is my body, my life. I'm very, I'm open to my clients about it. How I approach it with my clients, very much similar to you. Say, right, this is what you could be like potentially if we use any of this. Give them a long list, right? Douched, right? But they don't go anywhere until they've gone and done research on every single possibility. And it's only then it's done in a stage set, like through a prep. So, but where now I feel is you've got people like the Trend Twins, you've got the Monjaro mums, as I call them now, or even worse is you've got the Monjaro A celebrities. Now, an A celebrity will take, for instance, Sharon Osbourne. She looks wrecked. And
she is about 90 though.
huh?
She is about 90 years old.
But she looks even worse, right? But the thing is, they have the money to go and have private care. They have the resources to not necessarily be able to fix the damage that you've done, but minimize the damage that's been done.
The thing is that she might not even use it, and that's the problem. This is the fakeness of social media, and they'll be getting a backhanded money to sell something. It's like all these again sponsorship deals where someone's trying to sell a product they don't even use, and that's the fakeness of the whole thing. That's where we are. That is one of the downfalls of modern society.
So with that, with regards to all of this, do you, my last question before we go into the finals of what I call the myth busters, right?
Oh, yeah, sounds good.
The bullshit of society, right? Do you feel modern bodybuilding isn't really bodybuilding anymore and it's more of a business than it was a sport?
Right. Again, I always see two sides to a story here. So I think if we look at the sport, bodybuilding, and we look at the caliber of athletes in there, I think the bodybuilding is very, very real. There are some absolutely outstanding athletes there. You can compare them with the best that's ever been. And I would say that the genetic pool of bodybuilding is getting better and better. So yes, there is a reality there. However, all the things we've said about every Tom, Dick, and Harry jumping on board, and diluting it. Everyone's a coach now. Everyone's selling, like you said, GLP-1, Manjaro, and stuff like this. So everyone's in it to make money. Now, like you, I would imagine, I, my first client was someone I'd done for free. I never even entertained the fact that you could make money from this. It became a passion to help people around the knowledge that I knew. And I was in some real good money. I was a high-end executive, earning a lot of money. I didn't need to help people in the sense of, but I loved it. So I left my job to go and follow my passion. It was a passion project. I lost I took a huge cut in salary to follow my passion. And that's exactly what you're referring to now is people are not joining because it's passion. They see dollar signs and they're like, ka-ching. And they just, coaches have got 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 clients, ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. They don't give a flying fuck about those people. And if they leave, it's all right, I've got another one coming on. It's just money, money, money. And that is exactly the point you're on about. And that's what you could probably hear my elevated frustration because, I care. I genuinely care. Every single one of my clients will tell you that Matt spends time, he listens, he understands, because it's a passion that started 20 years ago.
You've nailed it on the head, right? I feel, it is just a money-making scheme now, the whole thing, right? From social media, it's even if you take it away from bodybuilding and just go into the general population, gym population, right? How many coaches are out there? How many business coaches are on there? I must get per week 50 coaches out there going, do you want me to mentor you? I'll get you 10K months. I can get you 20K months. I went with one of the biggest scam artists and this last year. No joke. I wish I never signed up with him, right? And thing is, I beat him back in the day. I was the highest converting PT for LA Fitness outside of the M25. And I was whooping his ass. Okay, yes, he's gone on to do other things. Yes, he's got, he's brown nosed a lot of people. Yes, he was sponsored by Cymex back in the day. Yes, he's bodybuilt at a better, higher level than me. I don't care, but I know I don't go around scamming people out of like $4,000 for 6 months worth of work, and have no intentions of following up with the promise, and even though it's in black and white. I just feel the passion of the industry overall is just pure money. And I understand everyone's got to make money, but scamming people to make money.
I mean that again, that is, I guess, another separate issue because there are individuals out there who do that. And that. But everyone, like you said, I must get 10, 20 a day of it looks like a 16-year-old trying to tell me with about 20 posts on his Instagram thing saying that he can get me £10,000 a month. And I'm thinking, well, you can't even get 100 followers. So how can you help me? And it's all the same script. But yeah, and then there are people who are successful who've built these big coaching coaching
Mm.
businesses, and some they don't achieve the results that they promise. I've
No.
seen those as well. But also, if you take it even one step further, it's like supplement companies. A lot of those don't actually put in the ingredients that they say they do. They're out for money. They reduce things. They'll say, and not necessarily in this industry. You buy something off Amazon, and it says it's got, I don't know, vitamin K and vitamin D in it, but when you send it off, it has got some form of vitamin D and vitamin K in it, but not the one it said. So everyone is out to make money, and this is why people are just they're losing trust with a lot of people because they don't know who to believe. Even the people that you would expect to believe are often the ones that you can't trust.
Definitely. I think I think we've hit some really important points on this, but I always like to end a podcast, mate, on the myth busters. Now, some of these are like pathetic, others are like, quite, shall we say, important, I would say. So number one myth: are carbs truly bad for bodybuilders? I told you something ridiculous, mate.
Yeah, absolutely not. No.
Exactly.
Do you want like kind of short one-word answers to these?
Yeah. No, you can put your little verse to it. I don't mind.
Carbs aren't bad for anybody,
Exactly.
let alone bodybuilders. So a lot of my clients, some of them say, I'm allergic to carbs, and it's like, well, okay, all right, you might be using the wrong words there because you might be intolerant to a certain carb, but you can't be allergic to carbs. Carbs have real value and benefit.
Well, I think that's come from a very well-known British bodybuilder who, has an obsession with eggs.
Yeah,
Shall we say?
the Eggman. Yeah, I know.
The
Um,
Eggman.
but,
The Eggman.
but in terms of bodybuilding, carbs are essential for bodybuilding. There you go.
Simple. It's very, very simple. Don't take out macronutrients. We need it all, just in certain amounts.
Yeah.
Or certain parts of it, like, instead of complex freaking bread, which is being processed through 9 million processors and think it tastes so amazing because it's got 5 tons of sugar in it, you don't need it. But you can still have white rice. So, do you think supplements guarantee you muscle gains?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not at all. Because um, I'm pretty certain you know of people, but throughout my years in the gym, there'll be people, and I'll be specific because supplementation could mean anything. Protein powder, creatine. But the example I'll give you is people wanting to get on steroids, because they think it's going to make them big. And this is the extreme, but it'll apply to any supplement really. A fat loss, supplement.
The
Applies
magic.
to everything, but the example is so extreme. The guy that says, "Why I want to get massive, I want to get on the test," injects testosterone, but doesn't train, and still looks exactly the same, except maybe his hair's falling out, and
and he can't get his bits up because
yeah, he doesn't want to have sex with his wife anymore.
Yeah.
But then absolutely not. Supplementation is there as a supplement. It's to
in the
aid
name, isn't it, mate? It's to supplement
your
what you've got.
goal. Whatever your goal is, the work is required to pursue that goal. Supplementation can aid that journey, that goal.
Now, obviously, you prep both sexes. Do you feel that men and women need vastly different diet plans?
In terms of
Even if you did it, even if it was Joe Public to competitive bodybuilders?
No. In terms of nutrition and food types, no. In terms of quantity, and and then that varies on a person per person.
Yeah.
So it's men and women. I would say no, um, no, not at all.
Yeah, see, I'm very much like an individual basis. Every person is individual.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
It's,
you could,
it's, it's not.
you and I could weigh exactly the same weight. We're not far off on height, but I know for a fact at the moment you're on a lot less calories than I'm on. You know,
Yeah,
totally different. You know,
there's no magic formula in nutrition for a man and a woman separately. It boils down to, again, the individuality of that person, the
yeah.
genetics, the physiology, the goal. So
Mhm.
yes.
So this is the most important. Well, I think this is we know the answer to this very much. The myth is busted on this one, well and truly. But I think it's a bit of a good one for you to end on. Can you trust all fitness influencers?
Well, I'm going to load my gun.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
absolutely no. And this is this you cannot trust. And let me expand on this because I don't want to scare people, because then it'll people like, well, who can you trust? Um,
Mm-hmm.
People who speak with authority don't necessarily mean that you can trust them. People who look good doesn't mean that you can necessarily trust them. And I've said these things already in the podcast. People who've got a sporting achievement, it doesn't mean you can necessarily trust them in a scientific advice. Who can you trust? Well, this is a difficult one because, you know, I guess the way to go around this is, if this was me, I'd follow that person for some time. I'd see what their clients um, say and do. I'd probably speak to their clients offline and say, "How is that, coach? How do you think?" And in a confident way, and say, and if anyone was thinking of having me as a coach, if they went to one of my clients and asked without even approaching me, I would recommend that, because I'm 100% confident that my clients would say, "Matt's a great coach." Now, endorsement is key, because, again, on social media, you'll get a coach put up a post about his client and say it's all amazing. And then 2 weeks later, that client leaves the coach, and doesn't say anything because they don't want to embarrass anybody, but they didn't have a good experience with that coach. But the social media profile is showing that that they got the best results ever, that they were amazing. So be very careful about how you investigate an expert or perceived expert. But the only way I would say to do that is go and speak to some of the clients. If someone's left recently, go and ask them why. Why did you leave that, coach? Then you'll find out some real truths. Start digging a little bit more.
I was about to say, what would be your top 3 bits of advice? Obviously, if say for instance, I said to you, Matt, give me three bits of advice because I'm thinking of going with, I don't know, a coach, right? Or I'm coming to, I don't know, we'll say for instance, we'll go top hat, we'll go say Neil Hill, right? I'm gonna go to Neil Hill. What do you think I should do to, like, 3 tips to go and see what's he really, really like?
Okay, so with Neil Hill, he's got a YouTube channel. He's got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of examples of successful um, outcomes, successful clients. So that there's a long trail of success there. So one of the red flags would be if you can't find any history of any achievements. I would say that, if you were to go and you're like, well, what have they done? And another red flag I would say is if you see that coach has um, a client, but then they disappear, you never see them again. You'll see them for like 2 or 3 months and then you never see them again. That's an indication of high churn. So those clients aren't staying with them. So they'll go, I've got this amazing client, they've just won this, and then they may post another month or so and then they disappear. And then you see the next one come along. That's a high churn. That's a coach with a high churn. That means that they're not a good coach. They can't keep hold of the clients. But with Neil Hill, there's a real documented history over a long period of time with some of the most successful bodybuilders ever. There's a pretty good measure of success. Neil, I know he's fairly busy, but he's fairly approachable. I would want a conversation with him. I would say, Neil, I'm thinking, considering coaching with you. I've been following you for a while. I've seen all you can do. Can we have a conversation? It's key that you have a conversation and you get to feel. You write some questions down, and you don't just say bye now at Neil Hill Coaching. So have a conversation with him and see if it's actually someone that you want to work with, because he might have methods that you just don't agree with. He might come across in a tone that you don't like. You might get some kind of feeling that I actually don't think I could work with him.
So how do you do this if someone approaches you then, Matt? If, say, for instance, I came to you, Matt, can we have a chat? Is that cool? Yeah. So we'd have a chat, right? So obviously, do you do that with all your potential new clients? Do you try to meet with them if they're in the UK based, or is it a case of like you say, buy now, Matt?
Absolutely not buy now, Matt, because I've got my own requirements for a client. So and this is where the dollar sign, I won't take on just anybody, any Tom, Dick, and Harry. There's a requirement from my perspective as well, and I want to make sure that I want to enjoy my job. I do this because I love it. So I don't want to just employ someone or employ. I don't want to just take a client on that is just for the money, that I don't feel like it's going to work. So it's an important part of the process. So
I call it the initial stage of a relationship. So
yeah,
it sounds a bit weird and wonderful, but I go into a client, if I can't see this working, as in I would see this as a relationship, you can say it's not a relationship as in, there's boundaries there set from the get-go. I've got a client who likes to try to be on those boundary lines, and she gets very, very close at times, and she gets a very good pushback of like, back off. And she goes, I respect you for that 100%.
I mean,
But
I call it teamwork. My terminology that I use quite often is we become a team, we become a partnership in working together to achieve your goals. It's not I'm a coach, you're the client, I say you do. It's how do we work together as a team to achieve these results? And that's why it's so rewarding for me at the end, because I've been there and through the whole process as a team. The problems, we go, all right, then, well, what do you think? And maybe give them solutions, options. And that's how the team evolves, the partnership evolves. And it is very much a relationship. But yeah, but just to go back to the question that you said, if you were to approach me, again, I don't sell from the beginning. So for instance, there's been two this week where a lady approached me and said, I've got no idea about, I've got a desire to get on stage for the first time, but I've got no idea. And rather than me say, right, we'll jump on a call, ka-ching, let's take this opportunity to sell. I said, well, I've got a first timers guide that has got lots of information in there. Why don't you read that? Have an absorb of that. If competing is something that you want to pursue after that, then we could have a conversation. And if there's anything I can do for free, like, depending on where you are, like help you with a bit of nutritional advice before you even start with a coach, then I'll help you for free first. Because, what I'm doing there is she might not be ready to get on stage. She might not be ready for a coach. So I don't want to go straight in at the jugular. So it turns out anyway that, she read the thing. She said it was amazing. I loved it. I really want to compete. I said, should we jump on a call and see if there's any things I can help you with now that might aid because the first time, I didn't even know she'd been to the gym or what. So she jumped on a call. I told her, she went, I want to sign up. I want to do it. So, and there was a message on Facebook earlier about a woman um, looking for a coach. She'd never been on stage before. She's 54. And, see all these other people giving advice, and you can see coaches saying, DM me. I said, I've got a free first timers guide there. If you want to read it, I didn't say anything about, call me for the sell. So, there's your answer. Yeah, I guess.
I get where you're coming from, mate. 100%. It's been really great talking to you, and obviously, we're in a similar field. Well, I tend to have stepped a lot away from the competitive side of it. Now, I just rather help the general gym pop of the world, because yes, it takes a lot of time, passion, and I was diving myself into it so absorbedly. It was just like becoming obsessive, and it's not good for me. It's not good for clients. So yeah, I've taken a step back from the bodybuilding side of it as such. I will still take someone on if someone really, really needs it, but it's got to be that very, very special client to do that. Now, where gym guys, I just feel like you say, the world is saturated with wannabes, and someone's it's probably one every minute having a bad situation or a bad experience, which is making our lives a little bit harder and harder and harder. I try to undo some of the damage.
I mean, I have got clients of all types, males, females, prep, stage clients, lifestyle clients. But I've with the general pop, they often actually, in my experience, need more help and more guidance. A lot of them, uh, you know, just want to lose weight, but then they've got a family that's really important, or they've got a job that's really important, or they've got high stress, they've got all these other problems, and their goal to lose weight is down the pecking order.
100%.
And whereas someone who's competitive, their goal is at the top, so it makes things a lot easier in some ways.
Yeah.
And with the lifestyle clients, you've got to take on board all these things of like, okay, so what do you can't say to your husband, you can't go out for food because you're on prep, you're trying to lose weight. You can't take a Tupperware box to the restaurant with your kids and your family. There's a whole raft of
plethora of stuff to get through.
yeah.
It is
And
very challenging. It is very challenging, but it's also rewarding at the same time. And I would say it's as rewarding, if not more rewarding, seeing someone who is stressed at home put themselves last to now start to bump themselves up the list.
absolutely.
It's more. I find it better than someone. I got someone on stage at the Arnold Classic, amateurs. That for most coaches don't happen, does it? It was rewarding, but at the same time, it's like I said, there was things on that whole thing. Her mindset was wrong because the head judge wasn't, had beef with her, doesn't like her, but her physique and how she was. So that was automatic before she even stepped on stage. And she stepped on stage, and it was just like, well, I can't be bothered. And I'm like, well, okay, that's a whole different kettle of fish. Where bringing someone up who's put themselves at the bottom of the list, the reward of even if they get halfway up the list is so much more than jumping someone on stage.
Let's be clear on this one. I know we've probably gone over time.
That's right.
But bodybuilding is a competition, so the measure of success is a trophy. So a lot of and we shouldn't get away from the fact that it's a sport and it's a competition. So that's why there are aggressive methods. There are elements of this which it makes it allow people to join now and just compete for the fun of it. But essentially, it's a competitive sport. So the best physique coaches in the world are measured by success from the amount of trophies and overalls and pro cards that they win. Okay, so there is that distinction. However, when I'm coaching someone, regardless of whether it's a lifestyle client or a competitive athlete, and sometimes it's a crossover, they do both.
Yeah.
It's not the trophy at the end of the day. I've gone on a journey with this person. We've gone through many, many struggles, and I've had I've many clients that have said they just want to lose weight. They feel better about themselves. They started going out more with the children because they were too heavy to even exercise with the children. To then want get confident about doing a photo shoot, and then to get the progression. For me, those wins are way, way, way more important than anything else. Helping people get over, body dysmorphia and illnesses, building self-confidence, seeing the person grow from someone who really doesn't like themselves, who can't look at themselves in the mirror, who has all kinds of eating disorders, to then becoming someone who's confident and shining and beautiful. They don't even need to get on stage for that. And that's the real win. That's why I'm passionate. I'm not passionate to see someone hold a trophy. Unfortunately, it signifies a success. People want to see a trophy, and that's the fakeness around it. I'm bought into the fakeness because people want to see a client with a trophy. But the real win is them hugging me and crying and say and the husbands or shaking my hand and saying she's amazing. That's what is the win. That's what makes me want to do what I want to do.
Yeah, it's like I say, I personally, for me, is seeing someone who puts themselves at rock bottom of the priority list to suddenly get a little bit more confidence, a little bit more, self-belief.
Exactly.
Suddenly come higher up the list and go, actually, I can be at the top of the list, but hey, this is my list. There's no comparisons. I said, my one of my mottos is you're on the airplane. What does the air stewardess say to you? The plane's going down. Put your oxygen mask on yourself first, so you can help others.
Yep.
Big context on that one, isn't it? And a lot of people are like, what? No. Put my kids first, my husband first. Okay, so what happens, to you? What happens to them?
I've got clients that I'm working with right now who say that same analogy to the their self-care is last on the list. And I say to them, what happens when you're not here any longer? When you're burnt out or you're in hospital and you can't look after them. I said, you've got to think about that. You putting yourself first isn't a selfish act. It's a I can't think of the biological term for it. It's gone. Uh, no, it's gone. But you enables you to help other people.
Exactly.
The people that you care about. If you're fit, healthy, strong, running on 100% rather than 20%. If you're going to live 10 years longer or 20 years longer, think of all the benefits.
I did a really interesting podcast with a friend of mine, Tatiana, in Australia last week, and she's a menopause, perimenopausal specialist, right? Now, it was very interesting. She had an older friend who unfortunately took her own life, and was scared. Who was a lot older than her, scared of life, so down in the dumps. And again, like we brought up earlier, hormones, your hormone levels, have them checked, have your blood work done. The older we get, the more technically fragile we are, right? And if we've been abusing our bodies, and I'm not saying, oh, I'm sitting here with a saint over my head saying I'm perfect. I've done stuff in the past. Like I say, quite happily say, I've done gear for on and off for like 10 years. At the end of the day, yeah, I've taken the consequences. But she was saying the amount of women she works with that don't actually understand how much they have to look after themselves later in life. And it was proven that at some university in America is the bigger your legs are, the longer you're going to live. And it's on a technicality, it's true, because more mobile you can be, the less you're going to be able to fall over, more balance you're going to have. So all these little things do contribute, but people don't understand this nowadays because they want results yesterday.
Yeah, the good thing you need to talk about there is we've focused on bodybuilding and fitness, but and you
So
focus on some of the elements that aren't healthy, but people people who don't do bodybuilding might look at bodybuilding sport and go, yeah, they're all junkies and they're all fucking pardon my language, they're all pet heads, but they don't realize that their lifestyle could be more damaging. The fact that they don't eat all day, they do 4 or 5 hours cardio. They've got all these issues or the really unhealthily,
drink, smoke, all the above.
Yeah. So there are so many people out there that aren't healthy. If we're talking about health, doing bodybuilding doesn't necessarily mean that it's unhealthy. There's lots of healthy elements to it, and it can be a very healthy sport to a certain degree, depending on how competitive you are. But generally, bodybuilding in the term of growing some muscle, some strength, there are huge health benefits for that.
Massive.
Going down a very extreme pro card competitive bodybuilding is going to have
extreme. It's extreme. It's going to have some accountability actions on it of like damaging your internals, damaging joint lines, putting joint lines under excessive amounts of strain, wear and tear on those joint lines, wear and tear on vertebrae, hips, knees, elbows, all the above, ligaments, tendons. That is part and part of the extremeness of that sport.
Any extreme sport. So David Goggins doing the ultra marathons. He nearly killed himself a few times. But that hasn't discouraged people from doing ultra marathons.
There's many sports out there, Matt. Unfortunately, we could be here until the cows come home, and we could go through a list of sport. Football, for instance. All right, that's dangerous. Cruciate ligaments, ankles, knees, legs broken, hip joint problems. That's without even touching the fact of how many times you hit a ball in your whole career. You're going to come out with brain damage. Wear and tear on neck joints.
Boxing is a great thing.
Boxing, how many times you get smashed in the head. Well, unless you're going to knock a dude out in the first round in the first punch, you're going to suffer. It's part and parcel of the sports. But if you put it across the span of health and fitness into bodybuilding, there is extreme levels in bodybuilding, but there is also extreme levels of being very unhealthy and putting yourself at the bottom of a list of like everything comes first before me. I've got to do all this work before I eat. Well, your body isn't functioning properly, so you're not actually being healthy.
And I can't sleep. I have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I don't get to bed till 1 because I've got all these things to do, and I don't get a chance to drink any water. And the stress. I'm so stressed because of it all. Yeah. They're all life debilitating things.
Exactly, but that's life, unfortunately. We as a whole, as in yourself and I, we do our best to our clients to help educate, for them to understand how to better themselves and to be the better person, live longer, fitter and healthier.
Our heart is in the right place, Chris.
Yeah, it is, mate. And on that bombshell, we're going to call it the end, because I'm sure I'd like you back on at some stage once you've finished your whole competitive realm of jumping on stage at the ages of 21 again. So, Matt, I'd like to thank you. This is the No Bullshit Gymcast podcast. Now, guys, girls, plenty more to come. Okay, keep watching